know that I'm streaming today. I'm doing this piece of art, coloring book page from Laura. Couldn't find a way to pronounce her name, so I was very sorry. Siadak? Pelik Siadak. Fallen Lights, I believe, is the Patreon page. FALLENLIGHTS. So again, we'll see how this all kind of goes. Just trying to find some time to relax, essentially. And I'm using the gel plate again, and what I'm hoping, although I don't know if I'll accomplish it, is that these will be nice transparent colors that'll form the base on the page. And then, like the other one I did recently, we'll paint in the rest of it. By the way, gel plates are a lot of fun with young kids. There are acrylic paints that you can use. Just look for non-toxic, obviously. And you just basically are printmaking, so you need a gel plate, some paints. You probably want something more like an acrylic, although I found that wash paints can also work. It's going to be pretty noisy. And then you use a brayer. You can use a brayer to move the paint out. And then the acrylic helps. There was a lot of old crusty paint, so you never know what's going to come up. But that layer of acrylic also helps bring up old paint that's on there. And you just smooth it on out. I have some older videos, I think, on YouTube where I was playing with stencils and stuff like that, which are totally something you can do. And you pull it up, and it doesn't make a perfect print, so you're probably never quite sure what you're going to get each time. But as you can see, because I'm using the more transparent colors, it's not like it's instantly just wiping away all of the black ink for the lines, which is very useful when I do the stuff after this. There is a chance that my child will come through the door with or without my husband, so we'll see what happens. May even be able to hear him, I don't know. They are playing pretty heavily in the background. As an example of things you can do, I did this one the other day when I was trying to clean off this plate a little bit. There's too much green. Just put some paint down, and then you can even put it on that type of paper. So I've been playing with this for a few years, and it's a lot of fun. It works better. So this is just, for instance, this is just copier paper. I printed it out. We happen to have a laser printer, and Laura has made these coloring book sheets available in the past to her patrons. I think I don't know if she's increased who can download them, but there are tons of coloring book pages out there. The other night, like I was saying, I did one using a D&D. I did one, this is one of the D&D coloring book pages that they recently released as part of the remote resources, and I did that up. I don't have it with me at the moment, only because my child took it and says it is the best thing ever, so who am I to argue? Alright, there we go. And I think I'm gonna do maybe one more little area, so I'm not trying to think what exactly I want. one fun thing with gel plates is that, as you can tell, there's this layer here. It'll come up over time. What you put down first will be outermost. So some people actually like building up layers and then taking one print. So the things you put down first will be what is most visible on the page. So it's a fun way to think about things differently too. Sweet, that's a good start. Let me just find some place to put this. And again, we'll hopefully not put my paintbrush in my iced tea, but we shall see. And then the other thing I've been using is this smaller jelly plate, just as a palette, because eventually, as long as I don't build up too thick of used old paint area, I can just take some prints off of it and it'll be fun. Alright, so right now I'm just going to use a round brush. Some of the paint's nice and wet, actually. It's just bubble wrap. I didn't get quite enough paint on it. Let's see. They're putting out fires, is what they're currently playing. Oh yeah, and you can use these kind of like a stamp too. Alright, that's good. I actually think I want to start with a much bigger brush if I have one. I had intended before things got shut down to pick up a nice set of brushes just for my acrylics, because I don't want to use the same brushes I use for watercolor on them, but I did not get a chance to fulfill that before things shut down. And brushes, I mean, you can buy them online, and I probably will end up doing that, but it can sometimes be a little hit or miss in terms of what you're getting. Let's see, this is like a kid's brush. It's very thick. see this one here. Obviously this is just printer paper, so it is not going to have longevity or anything like that, but this is just for fun anyway, so. I don't have a ton necessarily to talk about on my own as we approach day 1 billionth of stay at home. It's been super interesting trying to figure out how both my husband and I can work our regular jobs plus have our child home during the whole day, which I'm sure a lot of parents have been struggling with. I know I hear about it from my other friends who are parents and just in general and from coworkers, so there's no easy answer. And so we've just been trying to find little bits of time here and there to get in some relaxation. I've also been doing a lot more cooking, which is probably also unsurprising. And finally really starting to use, we'd gotten an Instapot, I think. I don't think it was this Christmas, I think it was the one before. And that's been awesome and interesting to use. I made my own whole milk yogurt in it, and I didn't think I was much of a yogurt person, but because I didn't know, for instance, that you can make yogurt that was less tangy, or that the fat content really affected that much. So I've been making about half a gallon of that every other week. And I've always loved Greek yogurt. Like, I like Greek yogurt, but again, I didn't know the difference in taste between higher fat versus the lower fat ones. But I also love to make, I just call it yogurt cheese, and that's when you take either regular yogurt or even Greek yogurt and you strain it even more, and it creates kind of almost like closer to a goat cheese or a cream cheese consistency, and that's been wonderful too. I've always liked that. So I made some of that. I also have found that I can use it to replace a lot of mayo and stuff, so things that I liked but haven't been able to eat as much, like tuna salad sandwiches and egg salads and stuff like that. I've been using the full fat yogurt instead of mayo, and that's been wonderful. The other thing I've been doing is making my own broth, which is pretty easy in the Instapot. And I make it so it's pretty with bones, and it gets a lot of the collagen and stuff in it, gelatin. So it has a lot of body. one of the things was a little hard is that I'm a type 2 diabetic. My brother's type 1. And so in end of January, I noticed my blood sugars had been creeping up too much. So at the end of January, beginning of February, I did a radical change on my diet and for a while my exercise program. The diet part I've kept, the changes to what I eat lifestyle wise, I've kept pretty good during the stay at home times. The exercise is, I decided that I wanted all of March. I have an Apple Watch, and it does this thing where it has rings, and I had decided that for all of March I was going to close all 3 rings every day. It's move, exercise, and stand. And I did it. But then once that was over, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna keep doing this right now. Only because, again, it's hard to fit in cooking more at home for all meals, taking care of almost 4-year-old and full-time jobs. I like this. So, anyone who's joining, this is line art by Laura Siadak. I'm just painting, having fun. It's cheap copier paper, so nothing I do is going to save it long term. And if folks have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, it's a pretty noisy house today, and I think people keep using their lawnmower. So, if you hear any of those things, that's why. Right before this, I recorded, and I'll probably release, hopefully today, on YouTube. I had done a flip through of a book called Witch Plus Craft, which is about adding crafting to your 5e game. And what I did today was I went back and I looked at how the crafting system actually works and did a video just on that. That was a lot of fun, although it took me a little while because I'm recording with my newer iPhone, and I did not realize that it had this whole stereo microphone thing, and so I noticed that the audio was being very strange, and hopefully I fixed it. It would go in and out, and I think it's because of that setting. At least when I searched the interwebs, that was the recommended source of that sort of in and out audio. A lot of people are streaming more these days. I got into it a little bit because I'm on a podcast called The Tome Show, and a lot of our episodes we have been streaming while we record, which was definitely a change for me. I figured, hey, if I'm on streaming anyway, why not do my own with things that are super fun for me, like painting. And actually, during one of the episodes recently, I painted the whole episode while we were talking, in part because it was an episode about gaming in quarantine or social isolation, and how folks were approaching it. And as much as I want to play games, it's super unclear at most I probably have an hour at night after my child goes to bed. And that would probably be like the only time I could really play at the moment. We're working on it, but that's just reality right now. Looks pretty cool. All right. I don't know if I'll get the whole thing done before I decide to stop streaming, but we can at least get it started. Yeah, I'm gonna get quiet when I'm trying to think through this. I also joined Discord. Was a little nervous because there are definitely some people that have strong reactions to me, so I don't want to upset any of them, so part of the reason I've been kind of quiet on social media for a long time, but I decided to join the OSR Discord and try to see how that's going. Although I meant to just lurk, and they were talking about whether or not during 5e Wizards of the Coast knew about OSR, which is Old School, Revolution, or Renaissance, depending. And I couldn't, before I really thought it through, I responded with that so I had a 4th edition blog, was doing a lot of stuff with Wizards of the Coast, and they flew us out before they announced 5th edition, And so when I knew, and at that time we were calling it D&D Next, when I knew about that, like, one of the first things was, hey, you know about OSR, right? Because I had known about, I'm forgetting the full name of it, but the, like, Red Box or something like that, the game where, a later rule set with this whole idea that you can give each other tokens from a shared jar whenever you think somebody did something really cool. And just a bunch of stuff like that. And so I wanted to make sure they knew about it. And then I had a column for a while with Wizards called Joining the Party, and it was, we showcased I would talk about some topic that I came up with, and then we would also at the end showcase a bunch of the blogs from the community in it. And I did my best to try to create a smattering of, whatever the current D&D was, plus OSR and indie games. And so again, to make sure that everyone knew that OSR existed. And that was always a trip because, like I said, some people have some strong reactions to me, and they thought that I hated OSR. And so whenever I posted one that was like, why is she doing that? Which, because the whole point of the column was to then look through people on social media and like on their blogs and stuff, what people are posting about, meant that I saw it. There's no getting around that. But it was a lot of fun to have it. I am sad that I didn't continue with it, but there were some good reasons for that, unfortunately. Alright, just trying to think what color to do next. I think I want to amplify this yellow. Which of course I should have washed my brush first. But we'll get this in. Do miss a lot of stuff currently. I think the biggest thing I miss is just the fact that we're on our own for the most part in regards to our almost 4-year-old. People sometimes, think of it in terms of like stay-at-home parents, which is totally true. We're doing some portion of that for sure. But even stay-at-home parents can either, occasionally find a babysitter or just get out of the house for a little while. And oftentimes, babysitter or outside family member, or just going somewhere and letting them get their energy out. But that's not really in the cards as much right now. Makes it really difficult, just mentally sometimes. But I get snuggles, so. I only picked yellows, greens, and blues, but I think I need something more eventually. there's been a lot of folks talking on Twitter lately about what they miss from 4th edition, which is kind of heartwarming to see. That was the first edition of D&D that I played, although I've been around the game since, I think, before I was even a teenager. My brother was a player when he was growing up, and a dungeon master, and so I don't really ever remember a time without it. And we also grew up with the television game Treasure of Tarman, and that was my mom's favorite game, or one of her favorite games on the Intellivision. But I started with 4th edition, and from folks who might be able to guess from my handle, Siadak Magic, that was actually the name of my first D&D character, and it's because listening to the Penny Arcade podcast finally made me feel comfortable enough trying to play, and they're silly, and that's what I like, to be honest. Sometimes their silliness goes a little too far, but I want to play in a medieval setting, and everything is grim and dark, and no jokes, because we're serious business. And if you like to play that way, that's fine too. Just not how I like to play. And so, but a lot of people, it was interesting going back to that discussion about, being there when folks, when the new edition was being announced, and people were really interested in trying to figure out how to make it work, and the assumptions that, just were always interesting talking to some folks, that a large underlying assumption was that people liked 4E because it was had a tactical minis game part of it, and that must be what you like about it. And so if that was what was, it got pulled over to the new edition, then we'd have some people thought that they would have the 4E player base set in that, and that is definitely what drew some people to 4th edition, the way that you could have basically a mini game during combat. But for me, it was actually more one of the things when I would look at earlier editions, and I know some people like this stuff, so this is just, again, just about me, my personal preferences, and not about what's best or objectively good. But there were a lot of things like the whole big skill lists area, and creating all of these fine-grained systems for stuff that probably is just better part of narrative. Probably a die roll or a single die roll isn't the best way to handle it. And I don't know how to explain it other than that. And just what I saw sometimes is people wanted a very, I'll just use crunchy way of determining whether or not you succeeded or failed. And sometimes it was a very simulationist way, like it was meant to simulate what would be going on. And again, totally fine for some people, just not what was going to scratch my itch. And then also what it kind of meant when you're the DM is that there sometimes felt like there wasn't as much freedom to me into how you wanted to have something happen. And so what I really liked about 4E to some degree is that combat's important because it's like what most of the rules are about, and it's most of your choices for a character. I think that I would say that's even still true in 5th edition. And so you're going to concentrate on that, and you want to feel like your choices there were important. But so many other things that are a part of that story don't go well with just dice rolls to me. And I don't want the rules to get in the way of it. You know, I want the rule of cool. I want failure to be meaningful potentially, and just stuff like that. And I know there are other games that address that in much different ways, and they're all great to check out. But if you want a game that has a fair amount of combat in it, and you otherwise like D&D, the 4th edition stuff to me just was cool in terms of, you know, for instance, I could easily make up whatever I wanted, because in the original DMG, page 42 had this handy chart. And like, on one hand, if the fact that a handy chart exists is going to distract you from the game, which it totally did to some folks, then I could totally see why it's not considered a great thing. But for me and for what I wanted, it was perfect, because I didn't have to come up in advance and design out a monster completely with all of the potential things that monster can do. And I had it, if I thought that it made total sense for the story and for what the players actually wanted their characters to face, I could add in a new effect and just know that this is approximately how much damage it did, and if I wanted to give it something special, that this is how you tweak it, and you can do that on the fly. And I thought that was amazing and awesome. And then again, not having as many skills, and not having a full system for adjudicating those skills meant that there was space to play. And that's what I liked. So when people ask me, like, when people say, like, well, what did you want to see in 5th edition? That's the part I wanted them to keep from 4th. And I know and that's, to me, kind of old school in a lot of ways too, right? Like, there a lot of times, because there just weren't rules yet, and people were making stuff up on the fly. So, and I think they did that to a fair degree. They were able to do that part. I think it's still not quite as much of that as I'd like, but it's there. And I do like that they did take inspiration, both literally and figuratively, from other game systems and stuff like that. Because when I used to do a lot of my research for about D&D and about what happened, like how folks used to rate for D&D and stuff like that, I saw a lot of, you could write about other game systems. It wasn't just only about this particular D20 system that you had to write about all the time. And so I'm glad that there's that sort of back and forth, and I think it really helps everyone. All right, just trying to think about what to do next year. I think I want to get another color. All right. Could be a really bad idea, but we'll see. Oh, didn't even open it yet. So I got in doing art, I want to say it's about 6 years ago now. I started doing coloring books with color pencil for stress relief. Found out that art journals existed. And I finally was like okay with just playing. Because in my mind, I always thought I was bad at art because So for one, I forget the name of the condition right now. The one where you can't actually like have a mind's eye and see stuff in your mind. I have that, so I can't create something that I can't. So I used to think that you had to have a picture in your head, and then you'd create it, and the whole point was to create your quote unquote how good you were was based on how well you brought that to fruition. And I think that's because in part I had access to really good art programs growing up because my parents sacrificed to get us into a quote unquote better school district. But they were often focused on like still life or something like that, which just we rarely ever did anything where it was like the gel plate where you have no real control over what's going on, and you kind of just play and through exploration create something. And so that was a real when I found out that like art journals were a thing and this type of art existed, it actually really made me want to do art. And then the other thing was just growing up, I was good at a lot of stuff in school, so I wanted to keep something for my brother, and my brother really wanted to be like an artist and a writer, and so I kind of just didn't want to compete in that area, and so I kind of just gave up on it. Which, of course, one of the ongoing critiques for me is just from some people is like, oh, well, you shouldn't critique anything, you should just create stuff, that's it. Which I don't obviously fully agree with. But and also when I try to talk about like representation in art, it's like, well, if you want it, then you should just create it. And I'm like, well, but I'm not good enough to create that. And the thing is that the art style I want to see and stuff is not the art style that I actually enjoy creating, if that makes any sense. And so it's just weird advice, or weird. It's not. I have issues with that criticism, but I was like, you know what? There is something valid in terms of if I want to critique art, I need to do some. So I did. And I just kept playing with it. Had to take kind of a break to a degree when I was pregnant with our child, and then when our child was a bit younger. Just because during pregnancy, some people get incredible fatigue, and I am one of them, apparently. And so my life was wake up, cook and feed myself, go to work, cook and feed myself, and go to sleep, which is kind of my life now, but we're working on that. Yeah, I like that pink. That helps a lot. I just gotta figure out where else to put it right now. I think I wanna repeat it here. I don't know if anybody's interested in any of this stuff, but it's fun to do it and to talk and to get things out. I really miss writing, but it's hard to find time to put words down on paper. And then editing it, and then having that constant just conversation in my head about what is the right thing to say and how to say it, kind of, when I'm speaking out loud. I said the word. I can delete this later, but I said it, and that's it. But going back to the Witch Plus Craft stuff, one of the things in the video I did today, I talk about it. One of the things I really like about it is that it adds a lot of world building, and that's because you have to negotiate with your GM what the base materials are. So you basically create it. You decide what your big project is that you want, or whatever project you want to do, and then you work out what the base materials are. What are the things, the components to it that are necessary? And these can be anything from, I need a diamond or a ruby or mango wood or whatever it is. It could be mundane like that. Or, as one of the examples they give in the book, it could be the crown of a headless king. So you kind of are world building as you do that, which I thought was pretty cool. And obviously you will world build as you're talking through what types of trades there are and NPCs and your mentors and everything else. And it reminded me a little bit of a way, like, similar to the Dresden Files, like, type of world building. It's less structured, but still there. Let's see. I think I'll be calling quits pretty soon. In part to just let all of this dry. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Well, thanks everyone for watching. I hope you have a great day, and see you soon.